Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Todd's podcast. You won't believe my guest today. It is Casana Fink. You may or may not have heard of her, but she is Miss Florida 2024. And I met Casana a couple of years ago in some other local pageants, and she was crowned Miss Florida in June or July of this year, and the last of June, beginning of July.
End of June.
End of June. And so I want to congratulate you on winning.
Thank
and
you.
welcome you to Todd's podcast. I appreciate you coming down and doing the podcast with us. And we'll talk about some things like how you got into the podcast, what you're doing now, what your plans are, and when the Miss America pageant is. If you've got a few minutes to talk about that, if you're okay with that.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of ground to cover. It's been a crazy year.
Yeah, so I wasn't able to attend this year's pageant. Brenda had asked me, but I couldn't quite make it. And but I've seen you compete in other pageants in the past, and you're an amazing young woman. And this was a natural progression, I felt like, through this. Brenda, our friend Brenda Burnett, has always been one of your, if not your biggest champions outside of
family.
outside your family, perhaps
Right.
your mom or whatever. But she's always really promoting you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You go to University of Florida. You've graduated. You're a Gator.
I'm a Gator, and
Go Gators.
I'm back actually,
You're
receiving
back.
my master's. Couldn't stay away. I'm born and raised in Ocala, so not too far away from here. I grew up competitive dancing. My father received a transplant when I was 14 years old, so that's been a cause I've been championing since for the
An
past
organ
decade.
transplant.
An organ transplant, yes, I should clarify. An organ transplant. And I started a nonprofit right after that when I was 14 years old. And ever since, I've been pouring into the transplant community and did that all through high school, did that all through college. And once I graduated college, I actually had a degree in telecommunications.
Right.
I thought I was going to be on Good Morning America, and very quickly realized I was probably not going to be on Good Morning America. And
You
that
still can, and you still
there's
should.
still time, right? But it was a very long journey climbing that ladder, and I realized that I did not want to live in the middle of Wyoming for a 2-year contract for $30,000. It's
Right.
just I didn't love it enough. So I looked at myself and kind of what else I loved, and I really have always had such a fascination and appreciation for fashion. And I went to London and I studied at Condé Nast College of Fashion and Design, moved back to the States, immediately started a job in the New York fashion industry, worked there until COVID-19 happened.
Were you out of college? Had you gotten your first degree yet? Or
Yes,
still-
yes. I received my first degree,
And how long did it take you to get your first degree?
3 years.
I got a college degree from the University of Florida. At the same time, it just took me 2 years longer than
Yeah.
you.
I love it. I really don't know why I was in such a rush. I was taking summer classes and I came in with APs, and I just was so excited to get started after college that I think I kind of rushed through the college experience. If I could go back, I would maybe do things a little differently. But I am happy that it worked out that way because I got a lot more done before COVID shut the
Right.
world down, and a lot of peers that were my age kind of had to stop before they even got going, I would say. And it kind of gave me some confidence going into COVID to where I started my own business. It was
So
my
what did you do in college? Were you involved in sports? Were you involved in athletics or
Yeah.
student government? What did you do in college?
I was very hands-on in the newsroom.
Okay.
So that's like 6 a.m. mornings, 12-hour
with
days.
the Florida Alligator?
Yeah, so the in-house college, which was very well funded.
The newspaper.
No, not the Alligator. It was their newsroom.
Okay.
WUFT News. I
Okay.
did radio, and then I did news, like packages and stuff
Okay.
like that. And I think that honestly burnt me out a little bit because you're juggling everything else in school. And my first year, I was a double major. I was going for a dance degree as well. And that's like 6 hours a day in the studio and the dance studio, and then straight to the other studio. And so I kind of decided that my second year of college, I wanted to live a different life. Was still hands-on in the newsroom, but that's when I tried out to be a Dazzler dancer
Okay.
for their spirit team. And I thought I would really find like a sense of community through that. I didn't do Greek life. And at UF, if you don't do Greek life,
I did.
there's not much more to do. Okay.
We had a great podcast with Hal Wallace, who was president of my fraternity a few years before I got there, that I would encourage people to listen to. Hal talked about, how Greek life has changed from when I was there to now you. And it was very instructional for parents who were taking kids to school who maybe had never been through Greek life and didn't understand it. And it really kind of gave an understanding of how it helps form a sense of belonging. And you did yours through your Dazzlers or the different organizations. And that's what the fraternity life, Greek life did for me, is it gave me an organization and a group to belong to. So, sorry.
No, that's what I say often. I don't like to say that I have regrets in life, but I do think that college would have been a lot more enjoyable, and I maybe would have slowed down if I felt that I belonged there. And you're looking at all these teenagers that have maybe known the same people that they went to high school with for years, especially in small towns like Ocala or Lakeland, and to go into a new university and kind of have to start over. It's a really difficult thing that no one really talks about. And Greek life makes that a lot easier. And I think if I could do it all over again, I probably would have done Greek life. But again, wouldn't have graduated in 3 years and lived the life that I did. So
I graduated in 5, and I can assure you I had enough fun for 5 people.
Perfect. So, you had enough fun for the both of us.
You can have one of the years that I had fun for.
But yeah, so I did Dazzlers, and maybe wasn't as that sense of belonging as I was hoping for. I grew up competitive dancing again, and that was very much a family. Didn't really have that. So when year 3 rolled around, that's kind of when I questioned, all right, are we going to reinvent ourselves again? And I kind of decided, yeah, let's try, third time's a charm. And I just really focused on academics, got straight A's my last year, pumped out the rest of my credits, and was just ready to kind of hit the ground running in real life.
Straight A's. We were so opposite in school.
Trust me, my freshman year wasn't as good.
I made 4 A's in 5 years, and 2 of them were in tennis. So I applaud you. What was high school like for you? What high school did you go to?
Forest High School in Ocala, and I had the most incredible high school experience. Was kind of the stereotypical like homecoming court,
right?
Cheerleader. Dancer, competitive dancing, of course. But when my dad got sick, I was actually a freshman in high school when my dad got sick, and he was sick in critical condition for about a year before he received his transplant. And then it took about another 6 to 8 months for him to actually kind of be able to be on his own again. So I think having that as a freshman really kind of first solidified to me how important the people that are in your life are. And, if you're going to love hard. And I think I felt that way for my friends. And 2, I was alone a lot because I have a half sister, but she's much older than me. So I was really home a lot alone. My mom worked 2 jobs and was his caregiver. And I leaned so heavily on my friends for that as well. It just kind of reminds you like the world doesn't revolve around you, as most teenagers think, but also to get through anything, like it takes a village. And I think that's why my high school experience was so close, because my best friends were my village. Their parents were my second parents. Small town high school experience, I guess.
Winter Haven had the same thing. Had a lot of buds that went to school that did not leave, and we're still very close friends today. And do you still stay in touch with some of those folks from high school?
Yeah.
You're not that old like I am, but you're still relatively close to them in age.
Yes. My best friend just got married last year. I was her maid of honor, and more like sisters than anything.
I would assume your father going through what he went through when you're a freshman had to have a very grounding effect on you. Yes. And that kind of, we'll talk about that a little bit further on into the podcast. But I want to talk about how you got involved in the world of pageants. Were you brought up as a kid through the junior Miss program, the teen Miss Florida teen, or did you say, hey, this is a way for me to help get some scholarships? And, what was your process to get involved?
Well, my mom was a pageant girl. She did a few pageants in her day. And I think she just really noticed how it helped her. It forces you to become comfortable with public speaking and interview skills. And it also just gives you a platform, kind of forces you to be confident and true to who you are. And so she dropped me off at a pageant one day when I was 13 years old. And I just remember looking at her being like, where have you taken me? Where am I? And like, where are you going? You can't leave me here. And she dressed me in the most like 80s pageant outfit ever. She just was not with the times at all. I was wearing a Calvin Klein navy dress down to my knees, pantyhose, and like 2-inch kitty heels, navy kitty heels. And I show up and these girls are like very with the times of pageants with their cute little colorful peplum outfits. And I just remember feeling like I do not belong here. But I went through the day. You have interview. I did the interview. I'd never done an interview before in my life, really. I truly think talent's kind of what got me that local title that first year. Did evening gown, on-stage question. Who knows what I even
When
said.
you're 13.
When I'm 13. But let me tell you, these girls were like professionals.
That's what I'm going to say. I mean, you show up as your first year out, and these other girls have done this before and sound like they've been coached of some
to some degree, right. I literally showed up in Doc Martens, so already was probably not the most pageant girl there. But I think it's a little refreshing sometimes when they see a girl that maybe has no business being there, but has the potential.
I think it helps push you through being in an uncomfortable position, and it matures you, and it's a great skill to learn. I mean, that's quite impressive.
Yeah.
And was your skill or was your talent back then dancing, or
Yes.
did you do something? So you've always been a dancer.
Always, since I was 3 years old.
Well, you're tall. How tall are you?
5'9".
5'9". And that's got to help a little bit with some of the dancing.
I mean, my leaps are really high because I'm already have a little bit of an advantage. But it makes turning harder, I think. It really doesn't matter. I think it's more of like your muscle composition that helps define you as like a dancer.
Okay. So did you continue on through the pageant world after 13? Say, hey, I'm going to kick some butt in this thing, or did you say I need to take some time off to do some other things and then come back to it?
No, I was actually quite addicted. I won my first pageant. They prepped me for Miss Florida. I was with I was Miss Lake City, but under the Miss Gainesville pageant, and they really like brought me to life and kind of, I would say, polished me up. Didn't change me, but just polished me up. And I placed top 10 my first year as teen at Miss Florida's Teen. And then I was like, first place is not that far away. Like I'm a very competitive person, so I got a bit addicted. Came back the second year, was top 10 again. Came back my third year and was second runner up. And throughout all of this, I was like really developing my nonprofit, super involved with organizations statewide, nationwide for organ donation. It was just really amazing, but I kind of didn't get to be a teenager, I guess. When you're dancing 4 hours a day and, you're having to meet up with your friends at the Friday night football game for the last 2 minutes just because you just changed in the car coming from dance. Like I kind of wanted to have that experience a little bit. I was sick of being left out of things. And my senior year of high school, I decided that I was a little burnt out and I needed a break. So that was...
you just want to be a high school teenager.
I wanted to be a teenager. And my mom I call her, she was a pusher. Like she was a little pushy when I was in high school. I
met her.
Yeah.
I think we met downstairs when you were pre-interviewing a year or
yes,
two ago.
Yeah. And now,
pushy, but she was always supportive of you.
Yes.
I mean, not in a bad way. She was always pushing to help make you better and make you be.
When I was a teenager, though, I did think it was a bad way, right? Like, I'm like, let me be a kid. Like, let me go to a high school party, right? And, but it was one of those things where now I look back and all of my success, I really attribute to her ensuring that I understood the value of everything that I was doing, and that if I was going to do something, I was first not going to quit halfway through the year, and second of all, give 110% because your parents are working really hard to afford you to be there. So, so she was a little pushy, but I tell her that and we laugh about it now. She just wanted me to fulfill my fullest potential. But yeah, I took a hiatus away from away from pageants and came back in 2022 was my first year back.
Right.
So I lived a lot of life in between.
And was that the Miss Florida Citrus pageant?
It was Miss Gainesville.
Miss Gainesville.
And when I won Miss Gainesville, it was my first year back. I was a bit rusty, but it was kind of nice to be back and, with my home team of Team Gainesville. They got me ready for Miss Florida. I made top 10. Next year, I came back as Miss Florida Citrus, and I'd love to get into my experience with Miss Florida Citrus because I was always in Winter Haven and Lakeland and everything, and it was just such an eye-opening experience. But I was first runner-up that year, and then I came back as Miss Tampa this year and won.
Todd's podcast is sponsored in part by SVN Saunders Ralston Dantzler Real Estate. Since 1996, the firm has offered unrivaled brokerage services throughout Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. With over 90 expert advisors throughout the region, our team has the knowledge and resources to help clients realize their most ambitious real estate investment goals. When you choose SVN Saunders Ralston Dantzler Real Estate, you have access to a diverse suite of commercial and land services, including forestry consulting, land management, auctions, property management, commercial leasing, and negotiating conservation easements. If you're seeking to invest in land or explore commercial real estate opportunities in the Southeast, contact us today at svnsaunders.com or call 877-518-5263 to connect with an advisor today.
So your family, obviously supportive, were they the crazy folks in the audience during the pageants that are yelling and screaming? It's like, who are these wackadoodles back there? Were they pretty stoic and just kind of let you do it, but you knew they were there, or did they want to make sure you knew they were in they were in row 22, seat 14 and 15, 16, 17?
Yeah. Well, I come from a family of New York Italians, so that might answer the question itself.
So they were the wackadoodles in the back.
They're the wackadoodles. But I always say when you're on stage, it's kind of awkward, being the person on stage. And so I always ask people to scream, because then you can at least laugh.
Right.
You can laugh at, your mom screaming in the back row. But my parents are relatively calm people, especially my dad. So the screaming to their extent, I would say.
How did you prepare for the Miss Florida pageant? I mean, your talent was lyrical dance. Mm-hmm. Eli is a lyrical dancer too. I don't know if you knew that, but I don't really know what lyrical dance is.
You almost got me with that one. I'm looking at Eli
Her
really?
Face. She was so shocked.
You said it with such a straight face.
Eli is many things, but I'm not sure he's a lyrical dancer.
Not there yet.
We should do a duet, Eli.
If we could only film that.
That might be a
We
nice
have our office
bonus
party
episode.
tomorrow night. We'll play the raw footage tomorrow night. What is lyrical dance?
Lyrical dance is basically dancing to emotional music. So emotional music. You want to invoke some sort of emotion.
Would laughter be one of those things? So when I watch Eli, I can say you are lyrically dancing by making us laugh.
I think that would fall under jazz. You might have a better option.
All right, I'll try that out.
Go with your jazz hands. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, not at all. So it's very hard at 26 to dance like I'm 18. People think I'm crazy when I say that, but I've had numerous hip injuries along the way. But I train with a studio in Ocala with 15-year-old competition team girls. And if you want to be humbled, I urge you to try that, because it's definitely a little bit of an ego death trying to do things you used to when you were at the pinnacle of your craft or your sport, and then now having to do it as a young adult with some arthritis.
I'm 47 and I'm humbled every time I get out of bed in the morning. So
yeah, well, we were talking about the stairs when I was coming in, right? So
we'll take the elevator
we
down.
We got to get an escalator in here, I think.
So when you prepare, I mean, your diet, your workout, your dedication, how many hours a day do you spend prepping?
Right.
I mean, you got to have some life along with it. The quality of life's got to go along, but you got to eat right. You got to exercise. You got to continue with your dancing to keep those muscles, strengthened so you can do it. Like you said, you're 26 and you're not 18, so you've been through some injuries. So how do you do that? Is a yoga part of it, or is it all?
Yeah. So it's different for everyone, but my experience, I find a lot of peace in the preparation. So I over prepare everything. It's just my personality. To me, that looks like I work out 5 days a week. I love Orange Theory, which is high intensity interval training. I eat pretty paleo, more meat and vegetables, no processed. Well, depending if you're in pageant season or not. When I'm on my off season, I definitely am not eating as clean. But I always live a relatively healthy lifestyle, so it's not too hard of an adjustment.
Right.
I put a lot of time in interview prep, which people maybe don't realize, but that means I'm watching the 24-hour news cycle constantly, news podcasts, just quizzing myself in the car,
So I thought of that last night as I was prepping for this, is the questions, the interview is sometimes the interview questions are ridiculous in my opinion. You don't have to agree or disagree but they're difficult. And do you look at, say, hey, these are the top 20 issues that are in the world today. I got to know a little bit about them. Or these are the top 5. I got to know a lot about these 5 because I'm probably going to get a question. And you only have, a minute to answer, 60 seconds, 45 seconds?
Well, that's on stage, but we have it used to be 10 minutes, but now it's 8 minutes interview. And those questions can look a lot different.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you were a judge. You've done this before.
Judge one time. Have you ever judged one?
I haven't, no.
It's a different animal, and I was a little uncomfortable doing it. Brenda, our friend Brenda, had asked me to do it when she got the Miss Florida Citrus pageant back on, and it's hard. And luckily there were some qualified people there to ask qualified questions, and I was there kind of watching and asking and interjecting. But it's hard to ask appropriate questions to try and elicit the answers and the information out of the contestants to do that. So, but your question on stage, how nerve-wracking is that?
Oh, it's the worst part for me. I absolutely despise it.
Worse than any other part of it?
Yes. I don't know why. It's just, I love being on stage. I love the dance, the evening gown, the fitness. I truly love interview too. I mean, there's always, you hope that you're not going to get blindsided by a question, but my strength is having kind of, the relationship component of, I love talking to people. I love meeting people. I love being able to share, story tell, stuff like that. So I enjoy it. On stage question is a different beast though, because your adrenaline is through the roof. You don't know if they're going to ask you about abortion. You don't know if they're going to ask you about immigration. You don't know if they're going to ask you, how are you going to bring the organization forward? There's no way to prepare. It's like studying for the SAT, I always say. But I have garnered some confidence because I've never fallen flat on my face. But that is something I'm a little nervous for going to Miss America.
Yeah. I would think the interview process, the 8 to 10 minute interview, if you say something you weren't quite happy with, you got 7.5 minutes to make it up.
Correct.
Though on stage, you got one shot,
Correct.
And I noticed that the last couple of years, the questions haven't been quite as political. Mm-hmm. I mean, before it was you were right wing or left wing.
Right.
And I felt that was unfair because if a judge leans to the right or to the left, they may not like your answer, even though your answer was very articulate and spot on is a great answer. But if you're not politically aligned with them, and I think they've kind of gotten away from that a little bit more.
Well, they say that you're not supposed to have an opinion. You're supposed to judge how the candidate carries themselves and answers the question. But let's be real. We live in a very polarized society right now, and that's nearly impossible. So my first year, they hadn't quite shied away from political questions yet. And I will never forget the girl in front of me got asked a question about how has this transformational moment in your life changed you? So, I'm like, all right, this is about me. I can answer this question. I can answer these types of questions. I go out there, they go, mass shootings are at an all-time high. What can be implemented across our country to ensure that we're protecting American citizens and curbing away from gun violence and mass shooting?
Right.
I'm like, well, this is not a question about myself. But I think I actually answered it pretty decently. I try to lean on stats. I try to lean on facts. I try to have an opinion without having a offensive point of view, and just kind of focus on some of the legislation that was being rolled out at the time that I thought would be beneficial to our communities. And that's all you can do. Get in, get out, get it over with, and move on.
And if the judges are true to themselves, they should say, I just want to see how Casana handles the pressure of the question.
Right.
The content of her answer is not as important as her delivery, as her poise, as, hey, did I throw her off with this question?
Right.
And, all of a sudden she just can't remember her name, or, hey, did she just flow right into an answer and she was articulate and composed and professional about it? Hopefully that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. You always get one judge, though.
Yeah, you do.
That wants to kind of push you as far as you can. I was in my second year interview, and a judge goes, what is gerrymandering, and is it legal in Florida? And I'm like, I haven't heard the word gerrymandered since the 7th grade, but I pulled off the answer, and I think truly he was just trying to see how we react with that question, because that's not something you prepare for.
No. Do you know what gerrymandering is, Eli?
You got me there.
Talk about that off air.
It's great. You and 3/4 of the Miss Florida class, like we're just so.
And a lot of elected
perplexed.
public officials don't know what it means either. And
Yeah.
some of the judges. What's the Miss America pageant going to look like for you? So we're going to post this episode the last Tuesday in December, and the competition in Miss America will be January 5th or 6th, somewhere right around there.
Check in December 28th. Finals is January 5th.
Okay, so what does that look like for you? Where is it? Is it in Orlando?
It's in Orlando.
Wow. You got a home field advantage.
Home field advantage, which could be a good thing, bad thing. You never know.
Well, we need to pack the audience with your friends and family.
We're on it.
And
trust
you like
me.
and you like screaming, and so you know they're out there.
I want to hear the audience roaring. But it looks like a lot of prep. I'm kind of in Miss America boot camp right now.
Okay.
For the listeners, we're about 2 weeks away from when I check in. Christmas is coming up, so that's a little bit of a detour for a few days. But I will sit there and obsess. And so it's really good for me to stay busy. And a lot of praying. I feel grounded in the sense of knowing that like what's meant to be will be, as long as I do my part and pray about it. That's all you can do. And just wake up every day and practice interview questions, work out, dance practice. I'm practicing walking next week. Many people don't know you have to practice your walk. So I'm just really trying to lay everything out so that when I get there, it's almost just habit.
Do you get nervous during the competitions? You touched on a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I would think the portion that you can control, you're not as nervous about your dancing, your clothes that you wear, your evening gown, whatever. But the one question on stage would be probably the most nerve-wracking. Mm-hmm. Do you ever just go, oh my God, I can't believe I'm up here. What am I going to do? It sounds like prayer is a good help for you, a solution to help you kind of pull yourself together when you need it.
Right. Yes. I lean on prayer so much during Miss Florida week and now Miss America week, I can imagine, because so much is out of your own hands. And when you're in that bubble, you forget what reality is, right? You have one goal. That goal is win Miss Florida, win Miss America. It's life or death. Like that's very much how it feels. And you're just on this adrenaline high and you're not really sleeping much. You're feeling so overwhelmed. You miss your family, like everything that grounds you in life that, a long day of Miss Florida, maybe I'm having a 14-hour day as Miss Florida. I at least can come home to my bed, to my family, and it kind of resets you. Or even life, like living in hotels. Like you just have peace of mind at the end of the day. When you're in this competition mode, it's a lot harder because it's like, okay, I just got over this hurdle, but you have interview tomorrow morning.
Right.
Okay, you just got over that hurdle, but you're surrounded by all these girls that you don't know. Like you want to build lasting friendships, right? So like that's what focus should be on tonight, but make sure you're getting enough sleep. Like it's just, I know it's life. Like this is just such a microcosm of being an adult. But there's nothing like a week and a half long of just competition mode.
Well, I've been an adult for a while, and I don't know that I've ever had a week and a half of being a Miss Florida contestant. Eli's working on it. I would think that week and a half is very intense. And as adults, you always go through intense periods of your life. And I think how you deal with it helps make you who you are,
Right.
whether it's meditating, whether it's yoga, whether it's just kind of taking some time for yourself and staring out to the great outdoors and
Sitting in the car. Do
sitting
you
in
guys
the
ever
car.
do that? Like when you get home, you just sit in the car for a couple minutes and reset?
Yeah, I mean, I've done it. I mean, you do in real estate. I've done that. Either you've just had a big closing or a big deal's fallen through and you got to compose yourself. Sometimes you just got to figure out how to gather yourself back. And, I think you're learning how to do that. So
I've learned a lot of stress management this year. Something that I didn't really touch on is I actually own 2 businesses. I'm getting my master's, like we talked about, being Miss Florida, but I also run the operations for a nonprofit around organ donation for an incredible organization out of Tampa. So being intentional with my time, understanding when to delegate responsibilities has been the secret sauce to this all, because I had a really hard time coming to terms with the fact that I can't do it all. And I feel awful when I have to turn to people and say, like, hey, I'm drowning. Like, will you help me? My boyfriend, for example, I swear, like, lives half my life sometimes, because there are just days where there's too much to do, not enough hours, but you have to produce things. And I wanted all of my attention to really be on Miss Florida, but I realized real life, you have responsibilities too. And if I do win Miss America, I've made the mental decision to put everything else on hold, because I want to make the biggest impact that I can as Miss America. But I feel like even as Miss Florida, I've been able to really do a lot with everything that I've been juggling.
So I want to talk about your platform and your business, but did someone teach you how to juggle all those things? Is it something that you learned from, did you just crash and burn and say, I've got to figure out how to do this on my own? You said you leaned on people. You know, how did you come out on the other side and say, okay, I know how to do this now. I know how to find a little more balance in my life. And I think that's what happens is the balance gets out of whack. Yeah. And that's when you kind of crash and burn. And that's when you reach out, because you can't do everything. Even at 26, you think you can, and you think you're bulletproof, and you're not. And a lot of that discovery comes with age. Has someone taught you how to do that, or just kind of figuring it out?
We touched on my mom a little bit.
Right.
She is a go-getter if I've ever seen one. She wakes up at 4 a.m., goes to her first job, runs that place basically. She's a supervisor at UPS, so oversees really everyone in Ocala. Like, she's the woman. She's been there for 45 years, and gets off at 12, goes to her second job where she does marketing for home health. She is a nurse, I guess, but isn't practicing right now. So she does that for 5 hours. And then that woman has a social life greater than a sorority president. Like, she is always somewhere. She's always making people feel special. And I learned a lot about her from, like, how to nurture relationships and how to, like, not let life kind of get in the way of that. So I grew up with her in a very, there's no room for laziness. Like, you're going to show up and you're going to be your best. But I did crash and burn a couple times too. Trial and error. Yeah. I've been fortunate to where, like, I never failed out of college or really just, like, failed at life at something. But there's definitely been some come to Jesus moments along the way where you just have to reevaluate and reassess and kind of divvy up your time a little better.
Hello, this is Juliet Ashley Vi, Miss Florida 2023, and I want to thank you for listening to Todd's podcast. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Todd's podcast, as each interview offers incredible insights into each of its guests. You won't be disappointed.
So let's talk about organ donation, your business. I've done a little. Did you write a children's book?
Yeah.
Tell us about your book and how you educate people, and what it is that you do.
I focus on 3 pillars really when it comes to my advocacy work. It's access to healthcare, which is a huge one. I could talk about that all day. Education on what organ donation is, and really educating the public and children, which is why I wrote my children's book, and advocacy, which kind of encompasses a lot of other stuff that I do. So to kind of talk through those 3, I think that's a great way to organize my thought process. I watched my dad go through this process. I saw how patients can fall through the cracks. If it were not for my mom, I truly don't think he would have made it. And not everyone has a caregiver that is that hands-on and, has so much hope and so much resilience. And through that process, I just realized there's so much that needs to be done. Like, why is no one talking about organ donation? And now more than ever, it is impacting our society. We're looking at 30 million Americans walking around in renal failure. Most of them don't even realize. And it's because of diet. It's because of diabetes, high blood pressure, substance abuse. Everywhere I go, I have 5 to 10 people come up to me and tell me about their organ donation story. And so that's what my goal started to be about, is how can we get this conversation going? And it's just evolved into, as COO for More Transplants, More Life, I oversee 7 programs now. And these programs are what my family desperately needed through our experience. So to kind of jump into the children's book too, because I know you touched on that. Education, I think, is one of the most important tools to get people to become organ donors, because there's so many myths, there's so many misconceptions. And I've had a lot of reception going to high schools, even middle schools, definitely universities. But it's hard to start that conversation with children. And there was a lot of dissonance when I approached elementary schools. So that's why I wrote the children's book, The Gift of Life, and it's my family story. The main character is named after our dog, Bailey, but it's Bailey Bear. And I use it as a tool to make organ donation not scary. And that kind of was my goal, because so many people hear about organ donation for the first time when they're at the DMV, and it sounds really scary, or when they're at the bedside of a loved one who might become an organ donor.
Well, that's when I became one. I got the sticker on my license. I couldn't tell you what organs I've agreed to donate. I think I decided to keep my eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, let's say something happens to me. How does someone know which organs to harvest that I've agreed to, in a time where the organs are still viable, that they could be transplanted? Do I need to be doing something on my end to say, hey, you can have my liver, my heart, this, but don't take my eyeballs or whatever?
Yeah, you've done your part. But if you ever want to change that, you can go to donatelife.org, and there's literally check boxes. So if you don't want your eyes, you want to check that, and it's as easy as that. If you decide you don't want to be an organ donor, it's as easy as going on there and doing it. They want this decision to be in the hands of the decision maker. This isn't like you sign your life away, you have one opportunity. And I think that kind of releases a lot of pressure about the decision. But it's actually very difficult to become an organ donor. I want to say the last stats I looked at, only 3% of organ donors actually get to become an organ donor, because not only do you have to be in a life-threatening situation, but you also have to be kept alive basically by a ventilator.
Right.
And if you pass away on impact in a car accident, you can't do that. If you pass away from a drug overdose, you can't do it. If you basically pass away on scene, you cannot be an organ donor.
So how you die is as important as what you plan to do with your body.
Correct. Yes. And there's so many places I go to where people will tell me, I can't be an organ donor, I'm too old, or I'm too sick, XYZ, everything under the sun, truly. And I always say, the oldest donor was 103 years old, first of all. But second of all, sign up to be an organ donor, and your medical experts will make that decision if what you can donate in.
You just mentioned Donate Life. I think that was the name of. Is that your company or your business, or that's the organization that I can go on?
That's the organization you can go on. It's Donate Life America, but every state has their own. So Donate Life Florida.
So Donate Life Florida named you the Gainesville Ambassador of the Year. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that's for the work that you've done and that you continue to do. Transplant centers, if I decide I wanted to donate and I am a candidate and my organs are good enough to take, can they take organs out at any hospital, or do you have to be at certain hospitals where they're prepared to take them, prepared to transport them? I mean, I'm assuming everything's, click, click, click. Everything is like boom, boom, boom. You got to get to it. You can't sit around for a week.
The logistics are insane.
Right.
And we actually know a donor family. I was at his honor walk when they were wheeling him from his room to the operating room. And something that they were really upset about, and they sat me down because they knew all the programs that I'm working on with More Transplants, More Life, is they had to keep him alive for 3 days on a ventilator to basically regulate his organs again because they were so unstable. And it made them not want to be organ donors because they said that was harder than losing him, was just
It made the
watching
family.
them.
That was the tough part on the family.
Yes, because it took so long. But it's because there's so many logistics, and it's because if you want to give life, they have to get the organs.
That's got to be a perfect situation.
Yeah.
So how did the family come to understand that? I mean, they're dealing with the grief of losing someone, and after 3 days, when they finally are able to take the organs, or for whatever the time frame was, at some point when they're able to reflect, do they say, it was tough for us, but it was important to,
Yeah.
my family member who decided to donate that? I would think it's just such a very humbling experience for everyone involved.
Right. I've talked to them a good amount, and what I've tried to do is talk to the organ procurement organizations that they basically facilitate the transplant. So they're the ones who do a lot of the logistics, and they're under Donate Life Florida. But I've really been trying to advocate on behalf of donor families, and I think that that's given them solace, knowing that those conversations are being had to make it better for future families. But I do also think that when emotions calm down, they recognize that this potentially is the most therapeutic aspect of losing someone.
My loved one lives on in the body of someone else.
At his funeral, there was a Donate Life flag.
Okay.
So it's something that's incredibly emotionally charged. And that's why I always say, whatever your decision, like, please communicate that to your family, because asking your family to guess what your decision would be is just incredibly difficult. And then you're asking them to guess and then wait 3 days.
Right.
And, they might look at you and be like, you know what? They wouldn't have wanted this. They wouldn't have wanted to be on a ventilator. But if you sat your family down and said, it is my main mission, if I pass away, to give the gift of life, and it doesn't matter what it looks like that's what I want to do.
Right.
They would sit there and be at peace with their decision.
Is there a religious component why people may or may not be accepting of that? Is it's like, hey, I want my whole body going to heaven, or, or has the religious community said, hey, no, this is a good thing. Your soul's going, but your body's going to remain here on earth?
All major religions support organ donation. I'm sure there's subcategories like underneath that maybe certain congregations aren't the biggest fan of. We actually partnered in Tampa with Commissioner Gwen Myers and church leaders across the whole Tampa, basically Central Florida area, kind of the pocket, because we wanted to get into underserved communities and really build the bridge of trust between those communities and the healthcare sector. And there was something so incredible about sitting at this long table with like 15 to 20 reverends and pastors, and just hearing their support and hearing how historically their communities shied completely away from organ donation because there's a generational distrust.
Right.
But now they recognize that people aren't just dying because they see that you're an organ donor and they don't want to save your life. This is a way for these communities to really feel like they're giving back as well.
So did you go to Tallahassee this year and lobby on behalf? Did you have any success up there?
I did. Actually, my boss, I reference him a lot because he's completely transformed my advocacy route, I would say. He has been a lobbyist for decades and is a double lung recipient. And so I met him through my advocacy work in Tallahassee. And that's when he hired me, because I was actually looking into becoming a lobbyist. And he said, maybe don't do that. He's been a lobbyist again for decades. And he's like,
it's a tough life.
It's a tough life.
I've got friends that do it.
Yeah. And he was very candid with me. And he said, do not become a lobbyist, but I will offer you a job today. So I knew he was very serious about not becoming a lobbyist.
There's contract lobbyists who will take on any cause for a fee. And then there's lobbyists for organizations. And I think it's a little different. We've got lobbyists that work just for the real estate industry, and they're paid by us. And but if we have an issue, we may go hire another law firm or lobbying firm who's very adept at that. So it may depend on which form of a lobbyist you take. So there are a lot of good folks that do it. And
oh,
it's
absolutely.
Important.
Oh, it's incredibly important. And he obviously knows that. But I think at the same time, he's seen the industry change so much. And it's just not the industry that he, I think, fell in love with when he first started becoming a lobbyist. But he offered me a job. And so through that, I've been very well connected with politicians, legislators. We created a bill last year. It got held up in the Senate, but flew through the House. And we really think we're on track this year to pass it. And it basically incentivizes living donors. It also ensures that there's educational materials out there for organ donation. Our goal is to present a transplant bill every other year.
What do you think about the political process? Do you ever think you might want to do that?
I loved it. I loved it on a state level, and I went up to Washington, D.C., and I loved it on a national level.
You would be excellent at it.
Thank you. I really could see myself doing that in a few years, right? I think there's some life to be learned before jumping
Thicken
into
your
that.
skin a little bit.
I know. I think that's like number one, right?
It is. Don't take yourself and don't take others too seriously.
Yeah. That's kind of the secret of life, though.
Take the work serious, but don't take the people too serious.
Yeah. I loved the process completely.
So if someone wants to become an organ donor, if they want to learn more about what it is that you're talking about, what should they do? Is it Donate for Life Florida?
DonateLife.org.
DonateLife.org.
You can find everything on that.
And then would you click on Florida, or is it kind of universal, and then you kind of get down to the specifics of being in Florida or Georgia or wherever you are?
Yeah, so the stats are across the nation, but I do want to touch on the transplant list only has about 110,000 people on it, but there's millions of people who need transplants. It's so competitive that only 110,000 people qualify, and people are getting kicked off the list daily. 20 people are dying each day on the list. So those stats, take them with a grain of salt because the problem is so much more prevalent than data is showing. And that's just my best advice. You probably know someone who's waiting for a transplant or someone who needs it. I did a dialysis tour as Miss Florida, and I met individuals who have been on dialysis 4 hours a day, 5 times a week for a decade, and they just can't qualify for the transplant list because financial hurdles, because they don't have a caregiver post.
Right.
Again, I could talk all day about access to healthcare. But yeah, you can learn more on there.
Well, let's kind of get back to the pageant world a little bit. You're heading off. Is it expensive to compete? Is it expensive to do what you do? You say you've got a couple of jobs, and one of them is Miss Florida, or that's your third, and you've got rent, and you've got car payments, you've got all that. Yeah. How does someone juggle all those things? I know scholarship is part of it, but sponsorships are also a big part of it as well.
My gosh,
and they're two different things. Scholarship goes to help pay for school, goes into your account, but sponsorship helps pay for
life.
The life.
Right. Yep, graduated debt-free undergrad, going to graduate debt-free with my master's. Every dollar you earn through the Miss America opportunity has to go to an institute, trade school, anything along those lines. So that's been amazing and a huge burden off my shoulders. I don't think I would have gone back to school if I had to pay for it myself because the level of stress that brings on. But my sponsors, oh my gosh, I could not do this without my sponsors.
Talk about them for a minute.
Yeah, we have a gas sponsor actually here in Lakeland, Nick and Mo's. I'm going there after I'm done here because gas is expensive, even though the prices are dropping a little bit. I've driven almost 20,000 miles in the past couple months, so do the math, and that's a lot of money on gas. So I'm very grateful every time I can stop into Nick and Mo's, and they are just the loveliest people, their whole staff. My evening gown for Miss America is completely sponsored from Regalia out of Orlando, which if you want to talk prices of pageant gowns, you would be... I'll just tell you, like a pageant gown can go from $4,000 to like $10,000. So it's really expensive, but Regalia has always taken care of me. Even when my dad was sick, I was using them, and
they're great guys.
They're great guys.
And they are very supportive of the whole pageant world.
And they love their girls.
I know David, I don't know his partner in the
Carrie.
business. Carrie. I met him, but David's a Lakeland boy.
He is a Lakeland boy, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I love when he says that.
I've got friends that graduated high school with him. And so they're telling me all these stories about
I'm
David.
sure he was a class clown.
That's one word for it.
I have a dentist sponsor. I'm actually in the process of Invisalign, which is amazing because that's also incredibly expensive. And I have really bad TMJ, and it just progressively got worse. It's Fine Dentistry of Orlando. It's in downtown Orlando. I have Bella Visage here in Lakeland. They're absolutely incredible. They're a med spa. They have done thousands and thousands of dollars with helping me with laser hair, from facials to everything under the sun. Cox Chevrolet, they gave me a car for the year. My car would have broke down a long time ago. That's been absolutely incredible. Miss Anne Marie out of Homestead, she basically provides all my wardrobe. I think that's touched on everyone.
Hey everybody, this is your host Todd Dantzler, and I hope you're enjoying this episode. I would like to take a moment to do a shameless plug for my real estate business. As most of you know, I'm a partner with SVN Saunders Ralston Dancer Real Estate, but I am also a working broker who is very active in listing and selling real estate. I've been in this business for over 41 years. I know, you're thinking he can't be. He's so young looking. But no, it's true. I've been actively listing and selling commercial real estate my entire working career on properties ranging from ag land to multifamily projects to office and commercial and industrial properties. I have held the distinguished CCIM designation since 1991. This is the highest designation you can achieve in the commercial real estate field. I believe that a big part of my success in the real estate business is because of the relationships that I have fostered throughout the state of Florida and also right here in Polk County. So if you have any real estate needs in buying or selling, please give me a call to see if I can help out. My direct line to my desk is 863-877-2846. Again, that's 863-877-2846. So what advice do you have for young women who are thinking about getting into the pageant world? It sounds like it's been very successful for you, very important in your life.
Right.
You sound like a wonderful advocate for the program.
Thank you. My first piece of advice would be don't wait. You're never going to be ready. Just jump into the deep end.
Like you did.
Like
when you
I
were
did,
13.
showing up in my Doc Martens, yes. Just show up, just try your best, and you'll learn a lot from your first year. You might even win on your first year. Sometimes, it's natural for people. My second piece of advice is live what you preach. I have always prided myself in the fact that whatever local title I had, I poured myself into that community. I was living the life of Miss Florida 3 years ago as Miss Gainesville and as Miss Florida Citrus and as Miss Tampa. And that is why I think I have received so much from this organization, is because what you give, you get back tenfold. I really believe that. And so don't just give half your effort to it. If you're going to do it full out. And that's truly how I think you win Miss Florida or Miss Florida's teen.
You're a Florida native. What do you like most about Florida?
Well, being Miss Florida Citrus, I fell in love with the citrus industry. And I had no idea how tough of times it was right now. So that was really devastating, kind of coming into that position and understanding to the extent of what greening is, and meeting these growers that years ago owned hundreds of acres and now have sold to developers, but just really still believe in the industry. So it was kind of a melancholy experience, but I love the people that are encompassed in the citrus industry. Yeah. I think they're some of the most resilient individuals.
Any farmer is.
Any farmer is, right? Yeah. Because you just never know what to expect, right? But you wake up at 4 a.m. the next day and you go out there and you give it your all. And that truly is something that's so unique to Florida. And I've got to serve orange juice at welcome centers. I'm just very proud of our citrus industry, and I can't imagine a better title to truly understand the history of citrus.
So as you've traveled around Florida, you've been to a lot of places, probably from the Keys to the Panhandle. Yep. What's your favorite restaurant that you've ever been to?
Ooh, I love a lot of food.
What's your favorite type of food? Italian?
No. My mom was the baby of 7 and never really learned how to cook. So I've had some bad Italian in my day. I love Thai cuisine, right. Asian food. I grew up in Ocala, was not very cultured with food, I would say. Our big 3 were Cracker Barrel, the Ale House, and, IHOP maybe.
Fine dining.
Yeah, fine dining. And so now as an adult to be able to travel and go to these hole-in-a-wall, restaurants. Yeah. I love a good burger. Love sweet potato fries. Oh my gosh, you're getting me talking about food way too close to Miss America. So eating clean.
So you've been in a number of pageants.
Yeah.
What is your pig out meal after a pageant when you say, hey, I don't have to worry about anything for a while? Bring on the carbs, bring on the calories, bring on the fat. What do you gorge on?
Again, sweet potato fries. I know it sounds healthy, but I could eat 7 servings in one sitting. And
it makes them unhealthy at that point.
Exactly. It's just drenched in honey mustard. And a good milkshake, a steak and shake, chocolate milkshake. Oh my gosh.
Sounds like Steak and Shake needs to be a sponsor. Or
I
they don't
know.
have to submit the others.
I know.
What's the most common question you get? I have an idea that I think I know what it is when you're walking around with your crown and the sash, and it's got to be, can I have my picture taken with you?
I get that a lot,
Yeah.
right? Or, my brother won't believe this. I'm like, oh. The other one that I've got surprisingly a lot is, are you the real Miss Florida?
Really?
Yes, especially around Halloween time. And I'm like, I didn't realize there were so many like fake Miss Floridas walking around, but I've gotten that one a lot. Like, oh my gosh, you're like the real Miss Florida?
Yes,
Like,
you're it.
yeah, and then they go like the one going to Miss USA, and I'm like, no, not that one, the Miss America version. My favorite thing actually is when people tell me, like, you're great, I've loved talking to you, I can't wait to vote for you at Miss USA. And I'm like, well, you
Just
can't
say-
vote. And
That's when you just say thank you,
I'm
vote
like,
twice.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll send you the link.
What I notice from being around you ladies that are doing this is little girls and little boys love having their picture taken with you with the crown and sash. Middle-aged girls still like having their picture taken with you. The middle-aged boys are starting to shy away a little bit.
Yeah,
The
they're
high
too
school
cool.
boys are scared to death of you. And then you get to the men. And most men would love to put their arm around you and have their picture taken with you while their wife's giving them the side eye on the side over there. Like, what are you doing? And, I think walking around with the crown, with the sash, you're a beloved character. And, you've been an excellent ambassador for the Miss Florida pageant and everything. You said you've never been a judge for one of these. I would assume you're going to start being asked to be a judge, or maybe you could not because you've been in the world and you don't want to judge your peers.
You have to wait a while for everyone
Okay.
that you could possibly know to kind of be,
That makes sense.
yeah.
It's an interesting experience to do that and to have to sit in judgment of young women, as a man, or, you've got a level of experience that I would never possess and having to do it. I'm glad I've done it once, but I don't really need to do it again. So
But we need those novice judges, is what we call
Absolutely.
individuals who don't have any pageant background, because Miss America isn't talking to pageant people every day. They're talking to like every American, right?
The people that make the milkshakes and the
Yes,
hamburgers and
right,
and
exactly.
fill up your gas tank.
And that's what I talk about this often is, as Miss Florida, it was really important for me to step into this role and not be someone who just showed up to the high dollar galas, right? Because though it's important to be able to hold conversation at those tables, I wanted to be someone that represented every Floridian. And I've been to events in the middle of the woods for blue collar families. And you'll always hear people say, like, I can't believe you came to this event. Like, thank you so much for coming to this event. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, this is what Miss Florida is supposed to do. They're not supposed to shy away from the long drives to unglamorous places, maybe, because a good cause is a good cause. And so I've, again, prided myself in that. And I think to be Miss America, like, you really have to have that mindset. Like, everything's a privilege. You can't just be looking for the glamorous photo shoot moments. So,
Well, the high dollar galas, as you just said, that's where the sponsorships
right.
come from.
Right.
And they're so important to help support the young ladies and support the pageants as much as the scholarships are.
Right.
So I think it is important. But when you meet the people on the day-to-day basis, and when you stoop down to get your picture taken with that, little child, that to me is what really kind of was pretty cool about it.
Yeah.
What does life look like for you in the next 5 or 10 years after you win Miss America?
Well, I'll be graduating. Thank you.
With your
Thank
7th
you. I love
degree?
that. I loved that little manifestation there. Thank you.
Thinking positive here.
Yes, absolutely. I will be graduating in next October, so that's really amazing. And I'm kind of in this precipice moment of life where I love owning a business. I love scaling businesses. I don't know if I naturally had a knack for entrepreneurship, but it's something I've really fallen in love with. So maybe continuing to grow my portfolio with business ownership, or if I did go more of a corporate route, it would be to kind of start going up the ladder to being an executive at some point I would love like a PR firm, fashion. It is my dream in life to be like the CEO of Ralph Lauren at one point. I love fashion, wearing Ralph Lauren right now, actually. But at the same time, if I could develop my own Ralph Lauren, that's kind of like
So why don't you just do that?
I'm working on it. Listen, I'm working on it. So yeah, that's kind of my 5 to 10 year plan. I think can look very different, but at the heart of it is business.
Is there anything that we did not talk about today that you would like for us to have done? Did we cover the Miss America pageant, the Miss Florida is certainly extremely important, but I think the organ donor is just as important on a human level and on a long-term level. Is there anything that we didn't cover, or is there anything else about the organ donation program that you want to say that I forgot to ask?
Yeah, I want to talk about living donation a little bit. It's not something that really comes to people's minds. And living donation is when you give one of your 2 kidneys or half of your liver. And that is truly why so many lives have been saved, is because people become living donors. And it's really scary, right? Like I definitely want to be a living donor in my life. I know that wholeheartedly. Who it's going to be for, that's kind of what I'm letting God decide for me. But it's scary because everyone sits there and they say, well, if I give my kidney to this person, what if my daughter needs one?
Or what if my kidney fails? I don't have another one to rely on.
Right. So I did a lot of research on this because I'm like, if I'm having these concerns and my dad's life was literally saved through organ donation, I'm sure the average American is incredibly hesitant to make that decision. Right. So just some fun facts are, if you become a living donor, a lot of places automatically will give you a $1 million life insurance policy if something happens during that surgery. That's comforting. Second of all, if you do give a living donation, you basically get a voucher to get you or a loved one to the top of the transplant wait list. A lot of people don't know that, and that's the main concern. So let's say I give my kidney, my daughter needs a kidney, she will go to the top of the list, right next to the sickest child that's up there. Wow. And there's other incentives that we're really trying to push. It's part of my job is to kind of do some research on legislation, and it's to incentivize organ donation so that there's tax benefits. We want to incentivize giving the gift of life as much as we can, and we want to ensure that there's no discrimination in workplace and daily life after you make that decision. So I do urge you to look into living donation because, again, I mean, we don't even know the numbers of the people that are dying each day because people can't even get on the wait list when they're so sick.
Is there a website where someone could go and do more research, or do you just Google livingdonation.com or whatever?
UNOS, which is United Network of Organ Sharing, is a really great place for statistics. Donate Life America. But again, the stats are really only covering the transplant wait list. And again, there's 30 million Americans walking around with renal failure stage 3. So it's one of those things that the problem is so much more prevalent than we know.
Can we put links to this on the website when you do some of the marketing for us?
We can. We'll put it in the show notes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what that means, but apparently
he's got it under control.
Yes, he's getting the Jelly of the Month Club Christmas bonus this year, so he's really looking forward to it.
I thought I refused that, but...
You can't refuse it. You can't refuse it. So your next... This will air at the end of December, and you will probably heading off to Orlando at that time. Mm-hmm. Is it on TV? Do you know anything about that? I'm going to tell you the loudest person in the audience is going to be Brenda.
I know.
She's going to be screaming like a maniac, and she always does that. But is it like on network TV? Do you have to do the internet TV?
So it'll be streamed. It'll be on for free on YouTube Live, I believe. I don't have the link yet. There was some rumors that it might be televised.
Okay.
That's since 2005. We've been really trying to get back on TV.
I don't understand why it's not. I mean, it's such an incredible program for young women, and I'm involved on the periphery. I'm not in it like the rest of the folks are, but all the young women that I met are just incredible. I know. And I would like to have like almost all of them work for me.
I know.
They're just wonderful young women.
The leaders of
driven,
our generation.
Absolutely. So if you're not involved with your local pageant, get involved. I mean, you've been a wonderful leader in your organization and a wonderful Miss Florida, and I'm sure you're going to be a wonderful Miss America as well.
Thank you.
You're going to be great at whatever you do. And Eli, can you think of anything that we haven't said or talked about?
Nope, I think that about gets it all.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in, Casana. I think you're going to do fantastic in the next week after this is aired. And if after you win, we want to have you back as Miss America.
Sign me up.
And
I'll be here.
You've been wonderful, and can't thank you enough. Thank you for your time, and good luck. Be safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, everybody. I want to thank you for listening to Todd's podcast. This has been your host, Todd Dantzler. If you enjoyed today's episode of Todd's podcast, I hope you'll tune in next time where we talk to Robbie Bell. He is a leader in the honeybee business. We talk about challenges, the ability to continue to raise honey, the importance of honeybees in our agricultural society, and the importance of just what they do for us. So tune in next time for our episode with Robbie Bell. As always, don't forget to rate, review, follow, and subscribe to Todd's podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you have any questions for me or any suggestions for future guests, please call or text our number at 863-288-0944 or visit todddantzler.com. Again, that's 863-288-0944 or visit my website, todddantzler.com. I look forward to hearing your questions and feedback, and please take care.